everyone. I think we are ready to get started. Welcome everyone to the Study Melbourne Career Catalyst Launch Your Career webinar. Um, and I think let's get started. So if we can go to the next slide. Hi everyone. So my name is Zuzana, and I'm one of the 2024 Study Melbourne ambassadors. I'm currently in my last semester of the Bachelor of Arts course, majoring in Ethics and Technology and Computer Science at Swinburne University. I've been in Melbourne since 2022, and this year was the year when I went through the entire graduate recruitment process. And as much as it was very challenging, it was also very rewarding. So at the end of it, I actually successfully secured a role at Queensland Government as a graduate policy officer, and I'll be starting in early 2025, which is very exciting. But it was definitely very challenging. I think I applied for like over 30 different roles. And ended up securing this particular one. So I definitely understand there's a lot of challenges that international students go through when applying for roles. And hopefully this webinar as well, in a way helps you give you confidence as well and motivation to go for it and apply for a lot of those early career jobs. There's a QR code there on the screen as well. If you do want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'd be very happy for you to do so. So if you want to scan the QR code now, or the webinar as well will be recorded and put on YouTube. If you wanted to review the material later on, or yeah, as well. Awesome. So before we get started, I just wanted to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which I'm presenting from today and pay our respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging, as well as extend their respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Island people on this webinar today. Awesome. So I guess a little bit about the purpose of the webinar. So it's all about trying to give you the confidence to go out there and apply for jobs and realize that you do have a lot of the unique skills that employers are looking for. And I guess gain a bit of an understanding of what it is that employers want in graduates, and how to effectively put that on your resume within cover letters, to give you the best chance of securing a graduate role once you graduate. And we'll touch on as well a little bit about effective job search strategies and networking as well. And hopefully by the end of the session, you'll leave with some practical tips of how to search for jobs, how to apply for jobs, and hopefully be successful in securing roles once you graduate. Awesome. So a massive welcome to our guest today. So we've got Mook with us today, and I will just leave the floor to you for a little bit, Mook, to introduce yourself as well.
Amazing. Thanks, Susie, for that little short introduction. So my name is Mook. You can also call me M. I'm very well aware my name's not easy. So if you do have a question, please don't shy away because of my name. You can easily call me M, or you can reach out to me on LinkedIn as well later. So I'm the Leadership and Talent Development Specialist, and I'm currently working for Bunnings Australia. And in my role, I look after 3 states, that's South Australia, Northern Territory, and Western Australia. Being in the webinar today actually is very nostalgic because a couple of years ago, I was on the other side where I had actually joined the Study Melbourne webinar. I was trying to really understand how do I launch my career. So a couple of years later, being on the call and being able to share insights, I feel really grateful and I also feel really honored. Just a bit of background. So I grew up in Delhi, India. I'm a city girl through and through, but I do currently live in Adelaide and I will connect the dots for you in just a bit. But I was an international student in 2018. I remember my very first day with 3 pieces of suitcase that are taller than me because I'm really short. And I landed in Australia and I was like, holy, can I just take the first flight home? There's absolutely no way I can make it. But 6 years later, I'm a citizen. I've really worked in some companies that I would quote unquote call my dream jobs. And I'm very excited to share some insights, tips, and tricks. The lucky bit was that I did start my career in recruitment. So I've been a recruiter, but I've also been, the student who's handed out their CVs in 7-Eleven, Woolies, Coles, you name it, and they probably have my CV. So I'm really excited to share my tips and tricks and just take it on from there, guys. Yeah. Zuzi, you might be on mute. Do you want to go off mute?
Yep, absolutely. I was like, there was
That's
a
all
train behind my window, so I was like,
right.
but yeah, amazing. Thanks so much for that as well. And I think it's going to be amazing to hear a lot of insights from you today. So first question, I guess, is so you've worked across a lot of different industries in talent and leadership development roles, from
Yeah.
roles in tech and IT to now retail within Bunnings. How would you say has your experience in those diverse and very different sectors shaped your approach to helping early career professionals like
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good question and something that got me reflecting as well. So, just for everyone on the call, a bit of background. I have nothing related to IT in terms of education. So, I did my bachelor's in psychology honors. So, I have an honors in my psych degree. And then I did my master's in human resources, and people and behavior is something I'm really passionate about. So, when it came to choosing industries, I will be extremely honest. I actually accidentally fell into IT. It just so happened that my first internship was in IT. Then Melbourne Uni had a business project that we went to Singapore and I worked for Thales Australia, which was again in IT. And then it so happened that my first job was also in IT. And so when I first read about Java and JavaScript and Python and network engineer and DevOps engineer and recruiting for some of the senior roles, I was taken aback. I was like, I just thought I have to do human behavior, human resources. I have no idea where I found myself in the world where everything is in cloud. What cloud are they talking about? And then a couple of years later, I'm now with Bunnings, which is nothing tech. It's all about putting stock on the shelf and really thinking leadership and talent development in retail. So looking back, if I had to, give you just a couple of pieces of guidance as to how you can use diverse industry experience to shape your early career professional, especially if you're a graduate, is my biggest tip is do not get fixated on industry. If you have worked in various industries and you're extremely sure which one you like, spot on. Go for it, build your career. You might also have industries. Like for me, I feel financial services is something I might not enjoy. It's still a hypothesis. I'm not sure how, true it is. But if you take a step back, what you'd actually realize that it's quite fun to see how does your role, that is be a software engineer, or it could be a human resources professional, or it could be a sales, a sales personnel. How does that look like in different industries? Because the beauty is every industry has its own challenges. It has its own pros. So if I think about tech, I love the tech culture. The culture of organization, super cool. Rock up in your songs, rock up in your hoodies. You have the pool table. It's everything that you see like the canvas of the world. It's actually pretty cool. But then Bunnings is nothing like that. I love working and rocking up to work with my apron on. It's just the kind of pride that I carry in myself. But at the same time, retail is very reactive, very fast, and it's change is the only constant. So now if I had to ask myself what industry I like, I know my answer. But I wouldn't know the answer had I not tried. So the only tip that I will say, especially if you're starting out your career, have a preference of industry, but if you get a good role in an industry that you did not fancy in the first place, that is okay. Give it a shot because everything is a learning. Unless you don't try, you wouldn't know what you like. So I think, yeah, absolutely. And I'm actually quite excited to try different industries going forward, even though I'm pretty sure which industry I fancy. I still don't know. Like, you haven't eaten the pizza. You don't know how good it is unless you taste it. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's obviously like when we go straight from university, we might feel like we're stuck in one single box,
Yeah.
right? In one single industry. But it's great to kind of hear from you that like trying different things is at the end what
100%.
lands you the dream job, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think as well the this next slide kind of goes off of it. So um uh, when we're at university, we're taught those technical skills, and it's all about learning what's the right software to use, what's the right technique to do something. And I think, especially during the graduate process, what I found
Mm.
during the recruitment process is there really isn't a lot of emphasis put on those technicals. It's all about soft
Yeah.
skills. When I was doing my interview, the very first thing they said, we can teach you everything, unless you can't communicate and you can't work in a team. Those things we can't teach you. You need to come with that to
Yeah.
a company. But in terms of technical skills, we can teach you everything. So I think it's very important to kind of put that emphasis on soft skills, things like communication, adaptability, and teamwork as well. For fresh graduates, I think they're very, very important skills
Hmm.
to keep in the front of your mind. So I think from there, we'll move on to the next slide. As someone who has successfully navigated the people ops space in, like you've mentioned, many different industries, what do you believe are the very most important soft skills that graduates or soon to be graduates should focus on developing to really
Hmm.
stand out when they are applying for roles in the competitive job market?
Yeah. And I wholeheartedly agree with you, Zoe. The importance of soft skill is at another level. And this is something for international students as well. Like I was an international student from India. And when I sat for job placements in India, there was a focus on a lot of critical thinking. And that's it. So it was questions like how many tennis balls can you fit in an airplane? And they actually, it sounds really funny, but they wanted to see, can you logically think? And then when I moved to Australia, it was all about soft skills. And I can't stress enough the amount of times you'll hear from a recruiter that we can train for aptitude, but we can't train for attitude. So, what I would want to share are a couple of soft skills that go beyond what Google would suggest. Because you can, if you type soft skills in a corporate job, you will see a list that is available on Google. But I do want to share some top ones that you might not see there. The first and foremost is confidence and growth mindset. It doesn't usually appear as a soft skill, but that's going to be a non-negotiable going forward, especially for international students. When we step out in the job market, it is very, very common to feel that, oh, I just need a job. Like, give me a job. I can prove you. No, like you already have the skill set. A company is always paying you for your service. So really think through what service or what skill set am I bringing to the table and really practice talking through it. So this is what I bring and I'm confident about the skills that I bring to the table. So it's quite common, especially when we're job hunting and it's been a couple of months to feel a bit, like, do I deserve a job or can I even do it? Yes, you can. If you've made it to the session today, if you've left your countries, left your comfort zones, you're out in Australia, trying your absolute best, I want you to demonstrate confidence in your job hunting. The other thing that goes with confidence is growth mindset. So something I do want to share, and this is a vulnerable space, is I've always been an academic at heart. I topped India, I met the Obamas. It was great. But what hit me when I entered corporate was that it's not a school, it's not an exam. There's lack of validation. And you know what? You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna really usually some things around when you're in your first job. So I want you to start harnessing some tips about growth mindset. So yes, you might be in an interview and you might not know the answer to that question. That is okay. It's your first job. They know that. It's all about really standing up and saying, "Hey, great question. I don't know the answer to this, but I'll surely look up to it." And you know, I'm very keen to actually learn about this when I start my role with this company. So, how are you using any of your mistakes from a growth mindset as learnings to improve rather than beating yourself over it? Because that's going to show in your energy in your interviews. If you don't know something, own up to it. Say you're going to learn more about it. You're very excited to research. Great. Because they are looking for how you respond, not the actual answer. I actually still don't remember a single tactical answer I've gotten from a candidate compared to the attitude and the energy they bring to the table. The other one is build relationships. I know I'll be sounding one of those, oh, again, she's talking about networking. I'm sorry, but it's absolutely really true. I'm an introvert at heart. I don't look like one. But building relationship is your sine qua non to surviving in Australia or in any workplace for that matter. For my international students on the call, I do want to say it's sometimes very normal to navigate two people that look like you, that similar to you, but use this opportunity to build your relationships with everyone. Somebody who doesn't probably look like you on the surface, somebody who you don't think you'll connect with on the surface, because I can guarantee you we're all humans and you'll find something that you'll connect with. Just a couple more that I will say. This is there's a leader in Bunnings that told me this, and I'll never forget. And I wish somebody would have told me this a bit early on in my career. Is you cannot be everything to everyone. So really ask yourself, who are you and what do you bring? You might not know the answer to that question yet, but keep it at the back of your mind. The reason being, if you look at Netflix and Disney, they are both streaming services. But imagine if Netflix wanted to try to be Disney and Disney tried to be Netflix. They would not survive, I can tell you that. It's because they are both streaming services specializing in exactly what they do well. So I want you to ask yourself, what's pocket skill? Why should somebody hire you? And what is something that you can bring to somebody? You don't have to bring everything to everyone because I'm telling you right now, you're not going to be able to please everyone at work. So what is it that you bring and who do you want to please? And that the answer should start with yourself. The other one is adaptability. I know I sound like a broken record. When I was a graduate, people would throw me the buzzword, are you agile enough? I hated the word if I'm being honest. But now that I've been in the workplace for about 5 years, sorry, but agility is really important because change is the only constant. If you look around in tech, there are so many layoffs with cost of living, with projects coming, with constantly changing, focuses in businesses. Agility is the only constant. So really ask yourself, how do I make myself adaptable? How do I react? Just notice, just be in a self-reflective mindset. Do I react very irrationally? Do my emotions take the best of me? And if yes, how can I work on that? Which takes me to my last point, which is emotional regulation. When you enter a workplace, I can tell you now, you can change jobs, but you'll find people you like, you'll find people who you wouldn't fancy. But it's really about how are you taking care of your emotions outside work? Are you journaling? Are you going for a walk? Are you talking to your family back home? Whatever that is, it is so important that you build your emotional intelligence from yourself. I know it's not something that might look like it'll make you stand out in a competitive job market, but it'll come in the way you present yourself to the employer. Yeah. So yeah, just a couple of them, Zulfi.
Yeah, great. And I loved all of them as well. I especially loved that your point about the growth mindset, and that ability to really, and agility
Yeah,
as well, that ability to constantly grow and learn as well. And I think everybody always tells us, our generation, that we're going to have like 50 jobs during our lives, right? So,
100%.
right. So it's like it's important that you bring those skills to the table as well. So yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
I guess moving from that to the more technical side about job search strategies. So we all know that there's all of those platforms like LinkedIn, Seek, Indeed, and so many more. But as the job market is so competitive, it's
Mm.
obviously not enough to just be on those platforms. You need a strategy in order to be able to actually stand out. So, from your perspective, so you've obviously been involved in early careers recruitment, and you do have a strong background in sourcing talent across all of those platforms like LinkedIn and Seek. What are some job search strategies that you
Mm.
recommend for graduates who are just beginning to navigate the job market?
Yeah. I think, look, this is a question I'm really passionate about. And for everyone on the call, if you're sticking around for one question, I want this to be that question. Because there are lots of job strategies, and I do want to acknowledge and validate that job hunting in itself is very overwhelming. It can sometimes seem like a never-ending process. When I used to be, when I was in the market last, and I would apply for a job, I literally used to imagine my resume floating in a water of sea. I have no idea where's the show. Who is this person who's reading my resume? Is it even being read? So I want to share some couple of the key job strategies, and I will highly recommend to make notes if you want. The first and foremost is LinkedIn. And when I say LinkedIn, I'm sure all of you have heard about LinkedIn, so I'm not saying anything new. But there are a couple of strategies that I want to share. It's more like a secret sauce. So first of all, if you do not have a strong LinkedIn profile, I want you to go have a look at how do you build a strong LinkedIn profile. And what I mean by that is you don't have to be a frequent post person. If you're, let's say in an engineering role that doesn't require a lot of getting out in the public, that is fine. I want you to have a solid DP, which is professional, a cover letter that really aligns with you and is authentic with you. And I want you to update all your licenses, certifications, jobs, and education. If you are thinking that, oh, Mugdha, I actually don't have much experience, that is fine. You can even write business practicum. Could be any project that you actually did at uni as well. It could be any part-time job, anything that you've done either in your home country or in Australia. So that's a non-negotiable because the moment I see a candidate, the world has changed a bit. More than reading their resume, I'll read their resume for exactly 3 seconds. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be that creepy stalker that's going to be on your LinkedIn profile, really trying to understand what have you done and whether that matches your resume, because that's where we see a lot of dodginess happening. The other one is, I'm sure one of you on the call are thinking, I've applied so many jobs on LinkedIn, I haven't heard back. Recruiters are not great, they don't get back to you. Absolutely. A part of it is definitely true. But I don't want you to apply a job and leave it there. I want you to apply for a job. If it's your dream job, if you're very passionate about it, you will always see the recruiter mention or the person mention who's posting the job ad. I want you to go to their profile, send a connect. You get an option of send with note. I want you to write a note. I want you to say, hey, XYZ, I'm really passionate about this role. This is my experience. Can I jump on a call with you anytime this week? I want your message to end up with an action item. What happens is we get messages saying, oh, we love Honeywell, we love Bunny. Good chat. I know that. What am I supposed to do? So I want you to, when you write that message, I want you to say, is there any possibility we can catch up for coffee this week? Are you free at 10 a.m. for me to give you a quick call? It'll actually force them to get you with a yes or a no. And people are nice. Most people are very nice and they will get back to you with a yes. And I can guarantee you, I've done 3 jobs in the last 4 years. All of my 3 jobs have been because of a LinkedIn message or a cold call I did. Especially my first one, I did not even know the role had a business development component. So I gave them a cold call and they were so impressed that I gave them a cold call that they hired me because they felt that I could actually cold call well. So I want you to do that. The third one was, if you don't see anyone on the job ad, because I know some of you are thinking, actually, we don't see who the person is posting the job ad. That's okay. So let's say Study Melbourne. Let's take an example. I want to work for Study Melbourne. I want to be associated with it. I'm going to write Study Melbourne on my LinkedIn search bar. You'll see the whole organization profile. You'll see a button called People. I want you to go to People and write talent or HR. And even if you don't do that, if it's a smaller organization, you will see who is responsible for recruitment and you will see who's the HR person there. And I want you to connect with them and send them a message. So that's one of the tips I want you to start playing with. The other tip is, even if you've landed your first job, I still want you to continue doing that because you don't know what's coming your way. The other one that is my absolute favorite is, you'll see some jobs called easy apply. So when you see them, I want you to easy apply them. It's exactly what it says, easy apply. I want you to save your resume on LinkedIn. So when you click on easy apply, you go next, it'll give you an option to upload your resume. I want you to upload your resume and never miss an easy apply job. And easy apply is exactly what it is, the easiest application you can put in. Now I'm sure you're thinking, Mugt, how do I do all this? It's overwhelming. So I want my Instagram friends on the call to use their doom scrolling habits for some productivity. Whether you're on a toilet break, whether you're with a friend who's boring you out of your life, whether you're on a walk and you see a job, I want you to click save. I don't want you to apply. I just want you to click save. Because you know what's going to happen? On a Saturday, when you land yourself in a lovely cafe or a library, you don't have to think, what do I apply for? You've got all your saved jobs there. You're going to pump up some banger music, whether you're a Taylor Swift fan or not, and you're just going to go execution mode and you're going to hit apply. You're going to feel great because you would have come out knowing that you've applied for jobs you thought you want to go for. So, and at that point, you wouldn't be thinking, how do I start? You're just going to be executing. Couple of other tips. First one is for my girlies on the call. This is not me saying, it's research. And I can guarantee that I've been one of those girls too. When you read a job description and a job ad, and you see 3 items that you know you cannot do out of 10, 80% of the girls would be like, oh, I don't think I'm the right fit. You know what? I'm actually not going to get it, so I might not try. No, honey, it's not your job to decide whether you can do it or not. Your job is to apply. Let the recruiters decide, because sometimes they can see through the potential that you at the moment cannot see through within yourself. On the other hand, men look at those 3 items and they're like, I can do the 7. I can surely win the 3. And they still apply. So if you are finding yourself to be in that trap, I want you to apply, even if you don't know the 5 items on the job description. Last but not the least, which is my absolute favorite, and it blew my mind when I got to know about it. When you go on a job ad and you see 100 applicants, you're like, no way I'm going to stand any chance in the 100 applicants. Surely I'm not that special. Let me tell you, 100 applicants doesn't mean 100 people have applied. 100 applicants only mean that and there are 100 people who've either hold on the job ad or they've clicked on the apply button. There's no guarantee that they even made it to submit. Especially if you look at the job ads for Deloitte and EY or any of the big consulting firms that take a bit of while to go through the entire process. If I click on it and I'm like, nah, too long, I'm not going to do it. LinkedIn thinks I've applied. However, I haven't applied. So do not be fazed by the number of applicants you see. Last but not least, I know I'm saying that for the last point as well. If you see a job ad that says advertised 4 weeks ago, you're like, 4 weeks, I'm sure they found somebody. I don't stand a chance. Let me just move on. No, it's actually completely the opposite. Imagine this. I'm an organizational recruiter finding somebody good for the last 4 weeks and I haven't found anyone. So if anything, I'm more desperate because my timeline's reducing and I'm more answerable to my hiring manager. So if you apply, I'm going to call you straight away because we need somebody and we haven't had the role covered for 4 weeks. So do not let that timeline phase you. If anything, you're in a lucky spot. And in the end, all I'll say for LinkedIn and for job hunting in general, make it fun, guys. It's really overwhelming. Nobody wants to wake up and job hunt. Piggyback it on a habit that you like, whether it's an iced coffee, whether it's a library you wanted to visit, whether it's a cool cafe. And I'm sure Melbourne's got heaps of them, given that I've been in Melbourne Uni and I do miss those days. I want you to go sit in a nice place, get the cheapest coffee on the menu, save some bucks there, and then apply for jobs and make it a 2 hour session so that you're done and you can go home. The next job strategy, and I'm sorry, mindful of time, is the resume bit. So I just want to say for your resumes, I want it to be short, crisp, and no longer than 1 page, especially if you're starting out. I don't want you to put a picture. I know, understand that there are some countries that do encourage that, but in Australia, I don't want you to put a photo on your resume. Just let your experience talk for itself. The only other point that I will say is talk data to me. If you tell me you're a good salesperson, well, I'm sure so is Rosie, so is Ellen. Why should I select you? Show me data. Talk me through what products have you sold? How many have you sold in the last month? What have people given you feedback on? Are you a good communicator? You're a great customer service skill that you have? Talk me through the numbers and talk me through some specific details because that will help you stand out in your job hunt. And last but not the least, if you're looking at me being like, I've got no experience, I'm not even sure what to write on that bloody resume, don't worry about it. You've done heaps of group projects, you've done heaps of classes in your school. Talk about the group projects you've done in class. Talk me through teamwork. Talk me through what was the outcome of that project. But start with data and make it as specific as you can. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, Moog, I'm looking for project management, but also business analyst, but also change management. How many resumes am I supposed to have? Don't worry about it. Build 2 to maximum 3 resumes. And what I mean by that is you're not lying. You're not making, stuff up and lying to an employer. But if you've done a job, I just want you to pick up the soft skills that are tailored to that specific role and highlight them. So you're not lying. You're just customizing and tailoring it to that specific industrial, that specific job. The only other thing that I see as the biggest, tip is read the job description before you hit apply. So yeah, couple of resumes, couple of LinkedIn bits. But if it's sounding overwhelming, my biggest tip is start with LinkedIn, build a good profile, and it's all about volume. It's all about numbers. So yeah.
Amazing. I think some great tips, definitely. I think I personally have been in that moment where like, oh, I can't do this thing. I can't do this thing
Yeah.
on the job description. You just don't apply. So, yeah, thanks so much for all these. And I guess kind of piggybacking off of that,
Yeah.
there's so many different things that, I guess that are very common for graduates, especially to miss or small pitfalls that they go down, small mistakes during the application process that can sometimes be really
Yeah.
detrimental to getting the role in the end, from resumes to things that you say in the interview, for example. So I guess in terms of the question, we can, yeah. From your perspective, having worked in recruitment consulting before earlier in your career, what do you think are the most common mistakes that candidates make during their application process? And any tips on how to avoid them? Well,
Yeah. It's actually one of my favorite questions, so thanks for asking that, Ruby. And I know people on the call might be laughing, and so would you be. But I do want to say, job hunting as a graduate is a lot like dating. So I want you to make that connection. First of all, and the biggest mistake I see is not knowing your company. It's not even like going on a date, not knowing the person, not knowing their name, what do they like, no idea who they are. You're definitely landing in trouble, right? So it's all about knowing your company. And if you don't have time, you've got lots of interview calls and you're like, I'm completely forgetting which job did I apply for. I just want you to read the values of the company. Everybody loves knowing that you've made an effort to research the values that have taken us years to build. So if anything, I want you to go on the company website, go onto their about page, or go onto their careers page. And I want you to read a bit of gist about where they started and what are their core values and whether they even align with you. Because it could be that they don't align and that then you know that it doesn't really matter if you don't get that job. So know your company well. The biggest mistake that I see is the imbalance between confidence and overconfidence. So how to not sound desperate? Because in reality, we are desperate when we are looking for jobs. You have bills to pay. You might be sending money back home. So we absolutely understand your situation, but I want you to be confident. You're bringing a skill set that's going to help them as much as they are helping you. So how do you stay confident when you're talking, but at the same time humble? So not overconfidence. If you don't know something, just owe up to it, like I said previously, and say, hey, I'm going to learn more about it. I'm actually excited to see how this applies in your company. I have no idea how it's done before, but I'm really looking forward to navigating it with you, right? The other one is the biggest mistake that I've seen my friends make. I promise I've made, and I don't want you to make, relying on one job application. You know, when you have a situationship and it ends and you're like, I'm not sure what it was. It's exactly with job hunting. Sometimes you feel you're very close to the end and you're going to get a job offer and that company doesn't take you for whatever reason. Maybe there's a better candidate or they've had a budget restraint and they have to pull back the job ad. I don't want you to rely on that one application that is at offer stage. I want you to keep applying till you get the offer in hand. In recruitment language, we say until it's not signed, it's not done. So I want you to understand if it's not signed, it's not done. So if you're very close to that dream job, you're at your last stage, you've already told six of your friends, but you know what, I think I have a job. And then you get that letter and you're grieving and you're mourning the loss of a job that you never had. I don't want you to be in that spot. I want you to keep applying till your day one. And if you have the capacity, keep applying till you're clearing probation. Because as much as they are assessing you, you're assessing them as well, and they might not be the right fit for you. The other one that I will say, and it's going to be a hot topic, is negotiate your salary, my friends. I started at the minimum wage Australia can offer. My first part-time job was $19, and yes, $19 was a minimum wage at some point, $19.89. And I remember telling my employer when they asked me, so what's your range? And I said, oh, I think you know the best for me. And I still regret, that move that was there who relied on the goodness of people. Yes, they were finally good and they did offer me the role. But looking back, I wasn't a peanut salary. So I do want you to stand up for yourself. Negotiate mindfully. This is a rule that I want you to learn. In any job, you should either be learning or earning. So if you're learning and earning less, that's okay. Take the job. If you're earning a lot and learning less and you think money is what you want right now, take the job. But if you're not doing both, I want you to be out of that interview, out of that company as well. So negotiate, put your salary down. What's the worst that you're not going to get it? That's okay. Rejection over regret always. I want you to have a ballpark figure. I want you to put it. The other thing that I will say, I don't want you to go and say, oh, $75,000. No, you're never going to get it. I want you to walk in with the range, and the minimum number of the range is the maximum number you want. So if I'm aiming for a salary of 80 grand, my range is 80 grand to 90 grand. Because you know what? If they can't meet me at 90 grand, they're going to meet me at 80 grand, which is what I wanted. So I want you to start playing with the numbers. If they still want to give me 70 grand, that's fine. At least I put my number down. At least they know what I'm aspiring for. And if they don't give it to me in the next couple of weeks, the door is right there for me to walk out. So I want you to start playing with negotiation early on. The other question is a lot of questions around, oh, it's a contract role. I want a full-time permanent role. The reality is we're moving towards the gig economy. The landscape of workplace is changing. and I want you to get the foot in the door. So if you get a contract role, which is cool, it's paying you more than a full-time role. It's just a 6-month contract, and you might find yourself in the job market again. I can guarantee you, take it. After 6 months, you're going to be a better, more suitable candidate in the job market than you sitting for on a desk and applying for jobs for 6 months. So whether it's a part-time role, whether it's a contract role, get your foot in the door, get it, and you'll be just as awesome as in a full-time role. Because let me tell you, security is no longer a thing. The key tip that I've made the biggest mistake on, because I was definitely not able to handle my emotions at that point. I don't want you to criticize your previous employers at all. If it did not work out, you had the most horrible boss. We all do, but that's fine. All you need to say is, I'm looking for the next step. I'm looking to progress my career. I'm grown out of my current role and I'm wanting something next. That is fine. Make up and juicy it, but I don't want you to criticize your employers, your colleagues, your team, nothing like that. Because you know what? If you're criticizing about your previous employer, the recruiter thinks they can be the next employer that you'd be criticizing about. Couple of other tips is or mistakes that I don't want you to avoid. If somebody asks me, talk me through when was the last time you demonstrated teamwork, I know you can get on a tangent and I know whatever you're saying will be true, but I want you to start using the STAR method. STAR method stands for situation, tasks, actions, and results. The moment you hear a soft skill example, I want you to think about a situation. What tasks did you do? What actions did you actually take? And what was the result of it, right? If you are in a group discussion assessment center, I just want you to be authentically yourself because recruiters can see through it. And last but not least, I want you to ask questions to the recruiter. When they say, so what questions do you have for us? I want you to prep 2 questions that you're asking because it means that you're fully invested. And looping back to my first date example, look, if you're anywhere like me, you're going to give your absolute best on your first date. So if anything, I want you to be overdressed but underdressed. And if you're confused, reach out to the recruiter and say, hey, is there a particular uniform guideline that I need to adhere to before the interview? But if they don't get back to you, you'd rather be wearing your formals or smart casuals than rocking up in your casuals. Because like I said, overdress is always better than underdress. So yeah.
Great. Yeah. So many good tips again. And I think a lot of those things just really set you up for your career long term, like being able to
Yeah.
negotiate, having that confidence, but balancing that confidence and not being overconfident. Um,
Mm,
having like that positive mindset, taking ownership, and being very proactive as well. So yeah, excellent things right there. Um,
yeah.
moving on to kind of our next topics, it's all
Mm,
about navigating your career growth. So, obviously, we've talked a little bit about how competitive and fast at the moment the job
mm,
market is. And we can see that the most successful people at the moment are the ones who never stop learning and who have got that drive, like you've mentioned, to either keep learning or keep, moving on with their career and moving forward. And I think it's the exact same for graduates. They need to adapt that mindset of
mm,
development and upskilling and trying different things in terms of learning new technical skills, developing their soft skills. So, in your current role, you use a multi-blended learning approach for developing top talent. Could you explain what that entails and how graduates can take a very similar approach to their own professional development as well?
yeah. And I think it's such a good question, Suzy, because you're spot on. The world's evolving and it's evolving at a pace that is sometimes can seem like we can't match it even. So how do you keep yourself relevant in the workplace and in the job market generally, even when you have a job and you're not in the market actively? So in terms of the market approach, there's one approach that I do want to share. And if anyone on the call wants to take a note of it, I will highly recommend. It's the principle of the 3 E's, or sometimes you would have heard it as the 70-20-10 principle. So what it basically means, the 3 E's are education, exposure, and experience, right? So let's say you are developing in a skill set. You want to get into career counseling, for example. I want you to think through if there's a skill set or a professional career that you're wanting to develop in, how are you educating on it? Now that you have a job, how are you staying relevant? So are you listening to some podcasts? Are you following some articles? Are you following some Instagram pages that are keeping you updated with what's relevant in that particular skill set? For me, it's learning and development. I'm constantly on the hunt of icebreakers, constantly on the hunt of what's new and what's in the market that I can pick up on. So, from the education lens, how do you keep yourself relevant? By looking at podcasts, blogs, articles. The other thing is exposure. So, if I wanted to be Zuzi, and what I mean by that, I wanted to be a student ambassador at Study Melbourne, I have no idea. I've done the education, I'm a Melbourne Uni alumni. I know what Melbourne is. I know what early careers might look like, but I just don't know what a study ambassador might do at Study Melbourne. So exposure is the key next step. I want you to pick up the phone and reach out to somebody who's actually in that role already. And I might call Zuzi and say, hey, Zuzi, how are you? Can you just talk me through what a day to day in your role looks like? And if let's say Zuzi and I happen to be in the same city, I might ask Zuzi and say, hey, Zuzi, are you comfortable if I can just spend a day on the road with you, or if I can spend just a day shadowing your role? I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to sit at the back and see what your day to day looks like. Because I might look at Zuzi's role and be like, holy, that's super interesting. I want to be, I want to be a student ambassador at Study Melbourne. So I want you to start networking even when you have a job, right? The last but the least is exposure. The only way that I will get to know whether I'll be a good student ambassador at Study Melbourne is by doing it. So how am I finding that project, that gig, that part-time role, that side hustle that allows me to experience what the role looks like? And I might be there and I might absolutely not enjoy it, or I might make some mistakes and I might be like, oh, this is something I can do to change. And that's how I learn it. So education is your 10%, listening to podcasts. And I've prepared a cool handout for you at the back of this workshop. And there's some really cool podcast recommendations in there. So follow some good pages, download some good apps, or make Spotify your best friend. Reach out to people and expose yourself. And last but not the least, get your hands dirty. The only other tip that I will give in a multi-blended approach, Zuzi, is that having a mentor or having a coach, all of us on the call will have that hype friend. You know, the kind of friend where you murder somebody and you call your best friend and they're like, oh, you know what? He was a douche. He's actually, you did the right thing. Murder was the right next step. Our friends are great. You want your cheerleaders, but sometimes you want a mentor and a coach who's going to show you the mirror. Who's going to say, Zuzi, you know what? The way you spoke to that leader, the way you spoke to your team was actually not quite spot on. How about you try this? So I want you to reflect who is that one person in your support network who you can make a mentor or a coach who can actually help you navigate through your career and show you the mirror at times. So yeah, just a couple of tips there, Zuzi.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think it's so interesting because a lot of time I think as students we are in our little bubble with our friends and everybody,
Yeah,
oh no, it's the employers. But
yeah.
so true, you sometimes need somebody to show you that you can actually improve as well. So yeah, that's great.
Hmm.
Um, awesome. If we could have Ellen move on to the next slide. Thanks so much. Awesome. So I think the next question is all about talking about company culture. So especially as international students, and I'm sure that you probably had a very similar experience coming to Australia.
Yeah.
The company culture, whether it is at a part-time job or those more corporate types jobs,
Hmm.
are different. So it is a lot of time challenging to adapt to this type of different environment at work. So, in your previous roles as a people and talent specialist at Honeywell, you were responsible for recruitment and cultural engagement. What advice would you give to international students about integrating into company culture and being able to thrive in a new work environment in Australia?
Yeah, I think it's such an important question, Ruby, and I wish somebody would have asked me this when I was, starting out in my career, because I would have known better then. But looking back, I think I've got some tips for everyone on the call. Some of them is, like I said earlier, network with different people. My biggest regret is in my first job. The moment it would be lunch, I would reach out to my Indian colleagues and have lunch with them. I absolutely, looking back, feel have a cringe moment looking at that because it's such a cool opportunity to network with different people and really find out who they are. And like I always say, there's more to connect than you think it is. So it definitely would be my biggest tip in terms of integration. The other one that I will say is that we often think, oh, my employer is not inclusive enough. Let me tell you, looking back, it is a shared responsibility to build mutual cultural sensitivity. And so, what I mean by that is, I want you to be proud of your culture and your heritage and where you're coming from. Whether it's in the way you carry yourself, the way you do your hair, the way you bring food at your workplace, I don't want you to shy away from your culture. But I also want you to start adapting and really seeing, how can I be a better part of the conversation? So a quick example that I will share is that I'm the only South Asian person in my current office at Bunnings. And I noticed that a lot of conversations were around footy. I was like, you know what? Why haven't I actually ever gone to a footy match? And I actually loved it. And now I feel I'm more a better part of the conversation, and I can actually talk through how Adelaide pros are the best. But this is what I mean, that, stay true to yourself, but really, just play and have fun with what are some things that I can start to experiment and try, some restaurants, some local sports activities, or just news or weather that I can start connecting with people on. The other thing that I will say, which I wish I knew looking back, have your boundaries. At the end of the day, when you're going to be at your first job, you are still pretty young and you still feel, you know what, I want some friends, I want like-minded people. Yes, build a support network at work, but I want you to clock out at 5 o'clock and make sure that you're not oversharing. Because the reason for that is not because I'm asking you to be a bad person, but the reason is today you're working with somebody, the next day you might have to manage them. The next day, you might get a promotion and you might become their manager, and you might be in a job that requires a lot of confidentiality. So you'll find yourself in some trouble spots. So I want you to connect, but I want you to know where are you drawing those boundaries, especially in your first job. You look for friends at work, which is okay, but build your personal boundaries straight up. The other one is go beyond your current role, whether there's projects, whether there's team building activities, whether there's a vibe club at your workplace. I want you to start navigating beyond your role because that's going to help you build a bigger support network at your organization and start integrating into it. Last but not the least, and this is a very careful one, is seek feedback. If you ask somebody who's starting out really nervous, I don't know if I'm doing well, I want you to set up regular reviews with your line manager. However, I don't want you to draw your validation from it. So how do you seek feedback, but how do you not let that fuel your validation completely? And last but not least, don't let your imposter syndrome kill you. You are there for a reason, you're valued, and I want you to just get out there and start exploring yourself. Yeah, a bit of those.
Yeah, great. And I love how you were talking about kind of that two-way street, that culture being a
Yeah.
two-way street where I'm doing my bit to share my culture with my workplace, but I'm also adapting to it as well. So excellent, but amazing, great points as well. I think it's our last kind of topic around it, and it's all about
Mhm.
building resilience and overcoming setbacks. So I think we all know that setbacks are an inevitable part of the your career and your career journey, and especially as graduates, you face a lot of rejection going through a graduate process or when you are in your early career. And resilience is a very, very important skill to foster whenever you're going through it so that you bounce back even stronger.
Mhm.
So Moog, throughout your career, I'm sure that you've encountered a lot of setbacks yourself as well and a lot of challenges. Could you share a significant career challenge you have faced and how you overcame it? And how did you build resilience through that experience? And what advice, I
Mhm.
guess, would you give to graduates in similar situations at the moment?
Yeah, I think it's such a good question and something that's not spoken enough because it does require a lot of courage and vulnerability. I do want to share for anyone on the call that if you are on this call, if you've left your home country and you're waking up in a country that is not wholeheartedly yours, you are already resilient. So it's just about honing on it. Resilience is something that you have it in you if you are on this call. So it's really about, continuing maintaining it. But if I could think through a specific example, was when I did my first job as a graduate. I actually moved cities. So I went from Melbourne to Sydney, and it was a recruitment consultant role with a business development component that I wasn't aware of. And what it entailed was doing a lot of outbound calls and calling clients and, navigating the whole setback of people cutting the, the phone on your face, sending you the nastiest emails when you send them a rejection. So a lot of that sorts. And, 9 months in, I realized that I love talent and I love developing people, but I do not enjoy giving outbound calls. And let me tell you, I'm a perfectionist at heart and not something that I'm very proud of, but I've always wanted to be perfect at things. And I fortunately have been pretty decent. So when this was the first time that I was navigating something that I was horrible at, I sucked at my first job. I was like, there's absolutely no way I can be bad at this. Like, I'm never bad at things. I'm going to try everything to make this work. But guess what? I hated it. I hated talking up at work and I hated dialing in and, just carrying myself to it. And that was the biggest setback because it was the first time I was telling myself, you suck at sales. You're not good at it. But how did I navigate it? I decided to start job hunting. And guess what happened? It was in the middle of COVID. My dad was hospitalized and I landed the job at Honeywell, which was in Adelaide. And I was asked to migrate. So my lease ended at 11 a.m. in the morning and I was in Adelaide at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Knew nothing about Adelaide. If anything, if anyone would have asked me, would you want to move regional for your permanent residency? I would say, heck no. My mental health is more important than moving regional. And I'm in South Australia and I love it and I'm never moving back to Metro. So what that biggest setback taught me was, you know, be kind to yourself first and foremost. I think I just hated myself over it for not being good at something. So I want you to be kind, right? And be compassionate towards yourself. The other part is there's something better out there. So if something's not working out, it's not a rejection, it's a redirection. But you got to have the courage for it. So a lot of people on the call, you might be asked to relocate for a specific job, especially if it's your dream job. I want you to give it a go. Especially if you're an international student, this might sound really blunt, but you're three pieces of suitcase. That's it for now. I want you to pick up those three pieces of suitcase and move cities when it's off. You're going to have a fresh slate. You're going to build amazing friends. And if anything, it really allows you to rewrite your story from scratch. And last but not the least, I will say that build your network. So reach out to people. Most people want you to succeed. If you're standing in front of the room, 90% of them want you to do well. Nobody's thinking, oh, I hope Susie stammers and messes up with the next line. Most of you on the call are saying, Susie's doing pretty amazing. I want her to succeed. She's so cool. I wish I could be like her. So I want you to understand people are good. If you get an opportunity, give it a red hot go because you have no idea what's there on the other side. So yeah.
Amazing. Thanks so much for that, Moon. I think you gave so many amazing tips and so many amazing stories. I think we can all take a lot from it, and use it when we're applying for roles later on as well and have that confidence. We've got some time for Q&A. I think there's a couple of questions out there. Maybe I might pass that on to Ellen to, she's there.
Hello. Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Well done. That was amazing to listen to you both share your insights and tips for hopefully a lot of the students that are joining the call and that will watch the recording. So thank you so much. We do have a couple of questions and a lot of lovely feedback, especially from Steve, who just wanted to say thank you for an amazing session. So many practical and useful tips with job searching. He's never been so engaged in an event like this. So your advice is honestly incredible and specific, and that clears up so many issues that Steve has had with applying. So that's amazing. Thank you so much for your feedback. We've also got a question from Fazal. I hope I pronounced that right. I have graduated from CQU University with a Master's of Professional Accounting. I have applied for several jobs, but unfortunately, I haven't received any responses. I'm feeling disappointed. Could you help me? So obviously that's quite a broad, it could be a broad range of things, but is there anything kind of specifically if you're not hearing back?
Yeah, 100%. Look, Phil, it is very normal to feel disappointed, especially if you know you're trying your absolute best and it feels like you're hitting your head against the wall and the wall is definitely not even cracking. But I want you to understand, my best friend said this and I'm never going to forget it. You need one job and one job only. You don't need 100 jobs. So keep going because you just need one and that might be around the corner. In terms of going beyond philosophy and into some practical tips, I want you to have a relook at your resume. What I've done is I've put in some links in the handout that will be shared. There's a website called resumebuilder.com or resume.io. It takes $1. So you're not going to have that 7-Eleven coffee. Spend that dollar on the resume and it's going to really curate and format that resume very well for you. The other thing that I will say is really start practicing the tip of sending a personal message to your employer. I don't want you to waste time sending that message to every employer on LinkedIn. I want you to figure out what's your dream job. And if yes, drop a personal note, put an action item into it. Just say, can I get on a quick call Alternatively, could you redirect me to the right person? And you will see some responses start coming through your way. If you are still not satisfied with the two tips and you feel like you need a bit more help, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'd be more than happy to chat with you more one-on-one.
Oh,
So
that's so
yeah,
kind. Well, yeah, you're right in terms of like almost going back and refreshing and reviewing what you're using because sometimes it might need a little bit more love or a little bit more information, and we kind of think
100%.
our resumes are good to go, but sometimes they need a little bit more tailoring. So that's very kind of you to allow students to connect if they need to.
Yeah.
We also have through Study Melbourne one-on-one sessions. So every Monday and
Mm.
Wednesday afternoon, you can book a session with myself or my colleagues, and we run resume reviews, some interview coaching. So if you have an upcoming interview or an upcoming phone screening or something like that, we can have a look at your LinkedIn and let you know any tips that might help you in that process. We've also got the final question. If there's, I think there's one more from Smriti. Thank you for this interesting session. I have a quick question. I'm on a student visa and badly want to get into the industry more specifically as a data analyst. Every time I apply for jobs, I get rejection due to my visa conditions. What would you suggest for me to do in this case? I have finished my course, but still have my visa till May and will proceed to graduate temporary visa after that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Smriti. First of all, I can wholeheartedly relate with you. I was there on a visa subclass 500, migrating to 482, and I was not happy with the amount of rejections I was getting in my inbox. So my only tip to you for you would be, especially with data analysts, the skill in itself is very well needed. So I want you to have a look at what states are offering permanent residency or employer sponsor visa for data analysts. The last time I knew that Sydney was good, and then Queensland became the next one. So I want you to have a look at where's the demand, because it's just about demand and supply. And then I want you to keep applying. The other way you can look at it is apply for smaller organizations and stay away, or, if you have an option between spending time applying for graduate programs versus actual jobs, I want you to focus on the jobs. So for graduate programs, the limit has, there's a really high bar for visa conditions compared to other jobs. My other tip for you would be to look at startups and look at smaller organizations, because they're a bit more relaxed. They're a bit more in need of talent. You might start with a lower scale in terms of salary. However, this is not a prompt to not negotiate. Still negotiate, but focus on getting an employer that will be open to your visa conditions. And I know it might seem like there's absolutely none in the market, but I'm the right example sitting in front of you. I've been with 3 employers who helped me support my visa. So there are employers out there, but I very well knew that South Australia had the demand of recruiter compared to Victoria. And I took the leap of faith. So I want you to look at the demand, and I want you to start reaching out to people on LinkedIn and having a chat with them. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Wow, we're getting a couple of questions, which is good. We'll take two more minutes. So if you have a last minute question, feel free to send it
Yeah.
through. And sorry, just to also mention a resource. I think they're based around Australia. It's called Stint. It's a student body through University of Melbourne. The team there they have a jobs board online, and you can also sign up to their network, and then you'll receive a weekly email for jobs that are open to students and graduates on a visa. And then that way you know that the job you're going for, you won't be rejected because of your visa. It's a bit more clear. You know that they're open to taking on talent that are on a visa as well. So I'll just ask this final question. Oh, there's two more. So thank you again for this session. There are so many things I can relate to with what you're saying, Mugt. And as an introvert, it is definitely overwhelming to go out there and meet new people and connect with people you may not know on LinkedIn or even in person. What are some ways to connect with people you do not know on LinkedIn? And secondly, recently I've been using ChatGPT to make cover letters as I've been applying for 50 plus jobs per day. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is it right or wrong, or does it come off less personal?
Oh, I love this question, first of all. It's a great, great, great question.
Mm,
And I'm an introvert as well, and I do facilitation for a living, so I totally understand your pain. But in terms of being an introvert, so let me give you an example, right? Like when Ellen and I first connected over LinkedIn, I don't know Ellen, and I had no idea where to begin the conversation. However, I know that if I need to talk to Ellen, just on the surface, without even having, really knowing what she looks like, I knew that we had commonalities in terms of study Melbourne, because I had been to study Melbourne when I was down there. In itself, Melbourne could be a common topic that we can talk heaps about in the crazy weather of Melbourne that's constantly changing. And then she's somebody who comes across as very passionate about graduates and graduate programs and early career development, and that is common to me as well. So I want you to go have a look at their LinkedIn profile, look at their posts. So what are they posting about? Are they posting about AFL? Are they posting about climate change? Are they posting about sustainability or layoffs or how much they love coffee? And I can guarantee you by your amazing stalking skills. So rather than focusing on stalking your crush, I want you to use that skill to stalk your employer slightly and really understand what are they passionate about. The other question was around cover letters. Such a big myth that I need to create cover letters. A, yes, ChatGPT is great, but how do you balance your personal, authentic self with technology? So rather than saying, hey, ChatGPT, make me a cover letter for Honeywell, I want you to write a cover letter and go to ChatGPT and say, make it engaging, copy your cover letter, press send, see what comes back to you. So that way there's a balance of authenticity, but at the same time, a more finished or polished version of it. The other tip that I want to give for anyone remaining on the call, you don't need a cover letter, guys. What I mean by that, for every job that you apply for, you'll see for cover letter, there's an asterisk button. If there's an asterisk, means it's mandated. Their recruiters know that they have to read the cover letter. I want you to write a solid cover letter. However, if there is no asterisk and they're letting you apply without a cover letter, I want you to say, hey, this job really excites me. My experience in my education experience in psychology, human resources, and my experience in talent development would be a perfect fit for your company. Looking forward to the chat. Full stop and hit apply. I don't want you to waste hours and hours writing cover letter for each company. I've been a recruiter and I haven't read any because it wasn't mandatory for Honeywell. So if it's not mandatory, I want you to skip it. Yeah. Yeah, I hope that answers. I got a bit
Yeah.
passionate about that.
No, of
Sorry.
course. No, that's very helpful as well. Like you said, if they're kind of making the cover letter optional, like still write something so that it looks like you're making, I guess, a bit of
Yes.
an effort, but you don't have to.
You're not ChatGPT. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly,
you're not a
exactly.
chatbot.
Yeah, I love it. And we actually had an event a few weeks ago, and one of our guest speakers made a good point that LinkedIn is pretty much the only platform that's okay to stalk people because we've got our profiles
Yes,
there.
I love
Yeah,
that. I love
yeah.
that tip, Ellen. When I mean stalk people, I genuinely mean just LinkedIn.
It's great. I love it. Well, hopefully that answered that question. And then got just Steve, is it better to approach the topic of job hiring at an in-person event or through online message? If I meet
Hmm.
a potential recruiter in person, should I ask about what jobs they are hiring for and or spend the time getting to know them and vice versa, me and them, and then
Yeah.
ask the job question afterwards through LinkedIn?
Yeah. Look, really good question. Because, like I said, you don't want to be too desperate, but you also want to be determined. And there's a very thin line between the two. If you are meeting a recruiter in person, of course, it's not a cookie cutter approach. It really depends on your previous relationship with them. Is it the first time you're talking to them? Have you seen them 10 times? But let's say it's the first time I'm talking to Ellen. I want to work for Study Melbourne. I would want to use 5 minutes of Ellen's time to build my relationship with her. To just introduce myself and say, hey, Ellen, talk me through what Study Melbourne does. And once, she talks about it, and I'm like, oh, I might want to apply here. I might say, oh, cool. And what kind of projects are you doing these days? Or what's the focus for financial year 25? I want to understand what's the lay of the land for Study Melbourne. Or I
Mm.
might ask her, are you currently recruiting for any roles? Have you had many new hires join Study Melbourne? How are they going? So this gives me a lay of the land. I
Mm.
then pause, I work hard. 2 days later, I might message Ellen and say, hey, Ellen, had a great chat. I mentioned you said there were a couple of upcoming projects. I actually have experience in project management. Just wondering if you'd like to catch up for coffee sometime next week. So take that time to build a relationship. Understand the lay of the land. They might say, oh, we've actually had a round of layoffs.
Mm.
You got to be running in the opposite direction, Steve. Oh, I'm going to chase you and drag you with me because you wouldn't be applying there. So I want you to use that time to build a relationship, check the lay of the land, get out of there, and then drop a message later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it, absolutely. And those 30-minute catch-ups, like we're all open to that because it will benefit both parties as well. It might help that student or that graduate with their LinkedIn, with their network. I might see a role out there that's not actually advertised as a job, just someone saying, "Hey, network, I'm looking for this
100%.
person. Do you happen to know anyone in that field?" So definitely just reach out, see how it goes. And one final question. Looking for, it might be a question, data analyst roles. And sadly, like you said, as I see 3 out of 10 requirements, I disqualify myself. What are some of the ways to
Hmm.
tackle this imposter syndrome? And let's say you do get to the job interview for such a role, how can I really show that I do have those 7 requirements they are looking for without, oh, I do or don't have those requirements that they are looking for without coming off as someone who is less qualified?
Yeah. Look, first of all, a virtual hug to you. I can totally understand, and I undergo imposter syndrome a lot. So I'm coming from a place of experience, even though I
Mm.
might look extremely confident on the surface. We all have an inner critic inside us. There's a little monkey that was sitting here throughout this session as well, telling, "Oh my God, surely they're yawning and they're disengaged and they do not care about you." So I totally understand where you're coming from. So when you look at those 3 items in a job description, first and foremost, I want you to sip your favorite beverage and hit apply. Do not, like, it's just a task. It should be like a chat bot. I want you to apply. Once you've applied and you've gotten a call and now your inner critic is telling you, now how are you going to prove those 3 skills that you said you're going to ace at? I still want you to rock up in your most formal suit and whatever makes you look handsome. And then when you rock up, I do not want you to say, actually, I don't know these 3 skills because I know the imposter syndrome fuels you to come clean. It's almost like you're waiting that somebody's going to get to know that you're actually not good. Don't worry about it. I want you to just stay calm and I want you to answer the questions that the recruiter has for you. If it does come up on a skill that you're not quite confident in, I want you to tune into your inner coach and your growth man and say, I've in my previous roles, I've actually not had the experience to play in this space, but this is something I'm really excited about, and this is why I feel the opportunity is great because I'm going to get the space and time to actually explore this, this technical language or JavaScript or Python, whatever that data analysis language it is. I want you to go and talk as if you're excited to learn. And if you feel that that has disappointed the recruiter, like read their body language, you can even say, I've actually started looking up courses on LinkedIn Learning. So if you are not confident, it's just because you don't know it yet. I
Yeah.
want you to believe in the power of yet. And I want you to go to your LinkedIn Learning, which is a little L on your LinkedIn profile, write the language and read. And trust me, sorry, I'm going to go just a minute over here. When I started recruiting in tech, I promise you, I had no idea what JavaScript, Python,
Mm.
DevOps is. But I had a flatmate who was a software engineer, and I would just spend time really understanding. I don't have to know it all. I just have to know it enough for me to be able to understand
Yeah.
and talk it through.
Mm.
That is it. And the other thing is, if you're just starting out, they know it's your first job. You need experience to grow. So do not worry about it. But I do want you to channel it in a more positive language in your
Mm.
mind. And I want you to frame it like that. You don't know the skills yet, but you will know them once you start playing in that
Yeah.
space.
Yeah, love
Yeah.
it. Never like dismiss your talents or your skills, but talk about the fact that you're interested in it, wanting to learn
Yeah.
is very cool. I think if I meet someone that's really driven and motivated to try something, even if they've never done it before, that just shows me that they're such like a passionate
100%.
person. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, hopefully that answered that question or it helped in some way as well. I don't think anyone really enjoys interviewing sometimes. It obviously is quite a nerve-wracking thing. Some people might love it. I think, yeah, we've got some great feedback from that one. So hopefully, he said, we'll definitely apply for those jobs I have been disqualifying myself for. So that's great
Yeah.
feedback. Amazing. Thank you all so much. I'll just double check that there's no more questions. So we will obviously recorded this webinar and I'll post it out to everyone that's joined and everyone that registered who may not have been able to attend. It will also be on YouTube and we'll send any resources through as well on the email. So thank you so much. Firstly to Zuzi, who's our student ambassador, for hosting today's webinar, and congratulations on your graduate role that you'll start next year.
Thank you,
Thank
Vash.
you
It's
to
such a
Morg.
pleasure.
Yeah, it was so nice to have you involved. And hopefully you can connect. And thank you so much to Mugd as well. I know that it was an early morning start for you as well. So we really appreciate your time and your insights. And I hope it's helped the students that have joined and everyone else that will watch this webinar in the future. So thank you. Amazing.
Amazing. Thanks for the opportunity, Ellen. It was great
Absolutely.
chatting with Rosie. It was my dream to, always have a podcast of my own. And I think this has given me confidence to tell my imposter syndrome and maybe start one. But thank you for everyone who stuck around. And like I said, if you have any questions, reach out to me on LinkedIn. And I'll be more than happy to chat through any imposter syndromes or any technical skills that I can help you with.
Oh,
So, yeah.
amazing. Thank you. Well, I'll make sure I have your both of your details in the your both of your LinkedIn pages in the email as well. So if anyone wants to connect and ask us a follow-up question, and I'll also share the resource that is the one-on-one session with the Study Melbourne team. There's always lots of resources to help international students and graduates. So keep coming to it. We've got an event tomorrow night about interviewing, which I'll share in the email as well, and a networking event at the MCG on Thursday night. So come along to whatever you can, and hopefully we see you all soon. So have a great day, everyone, and thank you both to both of you again for joining today.
Amazing.
Awesome. I think
Thank
that's
you.
a little
Thanks
chat.
so much.
Amazing. Cool. Thank you. Have a great day. We'll speak to you soon. Bye. See you.
Bye.